Separation. Next morning, Abbé Sérapion came to take me away. He led me to 2 mules, heavily laden with our sad little cases, waiting humbly for us by the gate. He mounted one, and I the other, at least as well as I knew how. We passed along the streets of the city. I gazed up at every window, every balcony. I hoped, I longed to see Clarimonde, but it was still early, and the city had hardly opened its eyes. I tried to see beyond the blinds and curtains of all the palaces we passed. I believe Sérapion thought me curious, thought perhaps I was admiring the architecture, for he slowed the pace of his animal to give me time to look around. At last we passed the city gates and started to climb the hill beyond. At the summit, I turned to take one last look at the place where Clarimonde lived. A great cloud hung over the city, bleaching the colours of the blue and red roofs. I saw the smoke of freshly kindled fires. One building taller than all the others around it, which still hid beneath the morning mist, one building seemed to tower up, fair and shining, radiant, touched with gold by a single beam of sunlight. It was more than a league away, but somehow seemed quite near. I could plainly see the smallest details of the architecture, the turrets, the platforms, the casement windows, even the weather vanes with their tails like swallows. I asked Sérapion, "What is that place, that palace, over there, all lit up by the sun?" He shaded his eyes with his hand and looked. It is the ancient palace which the Prince Concini has given to the courtesan Clarimonde. Awful things happen there." Was it real, or an illusion? At that moment I saw a shapely white figure, gleaming as it glided along the walkway. Clarimonde. Did she know? Did she know that just at that moment I was gazing at her home, her palace, feverish, restless, from the height of a rugged road that separated us and which I would never again descend? Did she know that a mocking beam of sunlight seemed to bring it close to me, to invite me to come in and be its lord? She knew. Without a doubt she knew. Her soul was connected to mine. The thrill of it had made her climb to the top of the terrace, wearing only her night-dress, defying the morning's icy dew. A shadow entered the palace, and the view became again only commonplace roofs and gables. Sérapion urged his mule forward, and mine followed. Finally, a sharp angle in the road hid the city forever from my eyes. I was destined never to return. For 3 weary days we journeyed through dismal country fields. At last we saw the church that was my destination, the church I was to take charge of. At least, we saw the cock on the steeple of the church, peeping above the trees. We followed winding roads lined with thatched cottages and small gardens until we found ourselves in front of this house of God. The façade had few features I could call magnificent. A porch, some ornamental mouldings, 2 or 3 pillars roughly cut from sandstone, a tiled roof retaining walls of that same sandstone as in the pillars. That was all. To the left the cemetery was overgrown with tall weeds that almost hid a great iron cross rising up in its centre. On the right the presbytery in the shadow of the church. My new home, extremely and frigidly clean. We entered the small garden. a few chickens pecking at scattered food. They had no fear of us or our gowns, and barely troubled themselves to get out of our way. There was a horse, wheezy barking, and soon we saw an old dog running toward us. My predecessor's dog. He had belonged to the priest who had died. Grey hair, dull eyes. Everything marked him as old as any dog could be. I patted him gently. At once he attached himself to me, walked beside me with the greatest satisfaction. A very old woman, housekeeper to the old curate, came out to meet us. In the little back parlour, she asked if I intended to keep her on. I assured her I would take care of her, the dog, the chickens, everything. She was more than pleased. As soon as I was settled, the Abbé Sérapion at once left me to return to the seminary. I was alone, with no one to turn to for help or advice. The thought of Clarimonde again began to haunt me, in spite of all my endeavours to banish it. She was always in my thoughts. One evening, as I walked in my little garden, I fancied that I saw through the elm trees the figure of a woman following my every movement. Then I saw 2 sea-green eyes gleaming through the foliage. Just an illusion. When I walked around to the other side of the garden, I could find nothing except a footprint in the sanded walk. A small footprint, small enough to have been made by the foot of a child. The garden walls were high. I searched every nook and corner of it, but there was no one there. I have never been able to explain this curious vision. It was, after all, nothing compared to the strange things which happened to me afterwards.